Hi, my name is Joan Balter, and I'm a luthier. That is a female luthier, or violin maker. And today I'm going to talk to you about a few things to help you become a better consumer, because as you know, you can spend a lot of money getting the instrument for your career, and you want it to be the best possible investment for your future. When you go into a shop, it's pretty easy to find something that looks pretty and sounds good, but the question is it set up properly? Will it help you or hinder you as you get to learn how to play that particular instrument? And there are a bunch of things that you need to get checked out independently, ratios and numbers that need to conform to the laws of violin making, which are not random. Every part of the violin is made on a ratio and to a number. So if you look at this picture of just the center section of this violin, you'll notice many numbers everywhere. This is not something that any one of you is expected to learn, but you need to know what questions to ask and which numbers to have measured or evaluated by an independent source. So the first number that's very important is called your projection. Now, projection is just a number when you lay a straight edge down the center of the fingerboard and drop a plumb line beneath it. Where these two rulers converge, that number is called your projection. And on a violin, it's very important that it be between 26 and 27 and a half, with 26 and a half being pretty much the standard. On a viola, 30 to 32. On a cello, 79 to 82. Now, I don't expect you to go around measuring instruments with rulers when you go to a shop, but the importance of having the proper projection is that if your neck is set too low, your bridge will be lower proportionally, and after a while you will be damaging the C-bout. But when you go into a shop to examine a new instrument or a used instrument that's been restored, everything will be looking lovely, so you don't have a chance to know if you're going to be damaging it. If your neck angle projection is too high, you are going to have a taller bridge, which will be correct proportionally to the fingerboard, but you will have a lot of extra pressure driving the bridge and the top, and ultimately your arching could collapse with constant use. So that's pretty important to have checked. The next number to have checked is what's called your overstand. And your overstand is actually the distance from the top of the edge, where the neck joins the body, to the bottom of the fingerboard. And when an instrument is made, it has to be that your overstand on your lower string side is higher than the overstand on the upper string side. And why is that important? Because when we play, we want the least amount of tension in our body. And if your overstand is low on the low side, the fingerboard will be tilted around that way, and you'll have a little bit of pulling on your elbow and pulling in your shoulder, and you're going to have to raise this shoulder higher to play. Now, you may not notice this when you just play a beautiful sounding instrument, and it won't show up until much later with overuse. You'll get tendonitis in your elbow, in your shoulder, and they'll recommend ice and rest and nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, and that will not help anything. It's a major problem for a player to have an overstand that's incorrect, so that needs to be checked. There are other proportions that are uniform in violin making that most people are unaware of, and that is that the ratio between the distance from the nut to the body and the body join to the F-hole notch, or the center of the bridge foot, this ratio is always 2 parts to 3 on a violin and a viola, and 7 parts to 10 on a cello, and 6 parts to 10 on a bass. So if this length on a violin is not 130 millimeters, you are going to hit third position in a strange place, and your shifting will be off. If your string length is too long, if this proportion isn't correct, your intonation will not be right, and if you learn to play it on this violin, you could never then adjust easily to another violin. So it's really important just to get that proportion checked and to know the fingerboard is always 5/6 of the string length, and on a violin it should always be 270 millimeters. If the fingerboard is too short, when you're playing up here, you'll fall off. The after length, or the distance from the bridge to where it makes contact with the saddle or the tuner, is also 1/6 of the string length, so it should equal this distance. And in fact, when everything is in tune, the pitch behind the bridge should match, and that means that the tailpiece and the tail gut have made this distance proper, 1/6 of the string length. And this is just a cheap factory instrument, but it was set up properly. So if you're not getting that pitch behind your tailpiece, you could have your resonance possibly slightly improved by doing that. Another thing that's really important is if your neck is set in straight, and you might not notice it at first if it's a little crooked, but what will happen is your bridge will start pulling to one side or the other, and you can tell by actually having the distance measured from the end of the fingerboard to the C-bout, or you can sight down with one eye closed and see that the scroll lines up straight down the middle, and you see even amounts of F-hole on either side of the fingerboard. So these are things that you want to have checked out before you buy an instrument. Another thing to check is if your pegs are very thick and they are worn into the scroll. Also, want to see if the strings are riding on the peg below it, which means they will start breaking soon, and it means you need to get your peg holes rebushed. And this is a slightly time-consuming, expensive procedure that most dealers won't do before they sell an instrument unless you complain. So my advice to you is, before you buy an instrument, take it to someone else you trust and ask them to check out the basic structure and proportions of the instrument. Make sure the bass bar and the sound post are in proper relation to each other, and make sure that the proportions are correct. Another thing to have checked is to make sure that your neck is the proper length from heel to heel, so that your hand will be able to adjust to all violins. You shouldn't only have to play your violin right. You should be able to pick up somebody else's violin that's well set up and play it easily. I hope this helps you be a better and wiser consumer.